Welcome to No Church Church. Today I'm here by myself. Coronavirus in full swing, and so we've got a shelter shutdown, and so here I am. I still want to talk to you guys. There's a story, everybody says this is unprecedented times, but, to me there's this story, the story of Moses, and his heart is broke for God's people, the children of Israel, and I want to talk about kind of what they went through, but then not only that, what happens next. I think that should be the biggest thing about what's going on right now is not, oh my God, what am I experiencing? What are my kids experiencing? What are my business experiencing? But what is the potential for what is next? Because if we're so focused on the now and the hurts and the pains and the sorrows, and I want to go to work and I want to feed my family and I want to go on vacation and my kids are struggling in school and what's going to happen with them next year and all of these things, will be weighed down. And I think if we look at this story, it's going to show us what the future has. Again, this is a great type and shadow. If we were to say that this time is unprecedented, I would challenge it and say, but what happened with Moses, right? We read the story so quickly of the death angel coming through and killing all of the firstborn kids for everybody who didn't put on blood of the doorpost. And here's the thing is there was no death angel before that time. It wasn't like every month a death angel comes. It's not like hurricane season. We know, 2 or 3 months of potential that, a hurricane's going to come in, or tornado season, or winter, or stuff like that, where we can kind of predict and we can use by analysis and say, based on old history, old results, this death angel comes, and this is what we did, and this is what we did in the past. And so you got to kind of think about this scenario. It's an invisible thing, right? The death angel is going to come, and it's going to wipe out your firstborn unless you do this. One, the belief in the fact that a death angel is coming is unprecedented, right? You got to take that information, something that you've never heard before, and you've got to think about how that is theologically based. What does that mean for you? How does it apply to you? Are you fearful, or how do you take this information in and digest it so that you can either reject it or accept it? And so the Israelites have to come in and they make this acceptance of it, and then it's not just the problem, the death angel, it's the answer. And the answer is mark your, have basically a sacrifice, blood sacrifice, and mark your post of your door. And when the death angel comes and he sees that, he'll fly over you. And, today, we're not going to sacrifice and put blood on our doors. I think the sacrifice is already made, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. And so he is our Passover lamb who's been sacrificed. So, for us to think that we got to do that. But I think it's so interesting because basically he said, stay inside, right? So Moses is through the order of telling everybody what to do to be healthy and make it through this unprecedented time at that time, is to stay at home. And so it's so funny to me that we have the same exact scenario set up, type and shadow, coming into Passover. I mean, it's March 3rd or something like that, I'm trying to get this podcast out before the Passover. We've got a pink moon coming in. It's a super moon. It's coming right on Passover also. So, and what do we know about the moons? We know that it's a sign from God. Why is he putting in such a big, beautiful, powerful object for us all to look at right at Passover? Why is this plague coming to us right at Passover? Why do we hear so many prophecies say that it's going to end by Passover? Why do we hear kids even saying it's all going to be over by Passover? We get so many confirmations, and I guess we could be clichéic and say, well, based on what happened in the Bible, we should also expect the same thing here. I believe that. I believe that the Lord has given us an answer of already where we are and where we're going. And that's what I want to talk about. What is going to happen next? Where are we going to go after this? And so, if you think about Moses, right? So Moses, the purpose of what he's doing is for the people. The people were in bondage. The people were slaves for 460 years, 440 years. Apologize, don't know exact number. But for many generations, the people are in bondage to the leadership, and I think that's one thing that we have to understand about what is happening here and why. If we were to sit here and say, and I'm going to future forecast what is going to happen next, is governments are being shaken to their core. The leaders of governments are being shaken to their core. In the situation with Egypt and Israelites and Moses, it was for the leaders to be shaken to their core, to understand God Almighty, and basically after that, they set the people free, right? So here you got Pharaoh, and Pharaoh says, oh my gosh, just go. Just be free, take your people, get out of here. And that's what I think's coming up. One, what's happening next? I think one is there's going to be a real freedom from government, church. I think there's going to be a real freedom from debt. I think that there's going to be a real change that shifts and takes place. Ever since Trump's been elected, you can like Trump, not like Trump, doesn't bother me. Ever since Trump's been elected, he said this at the inaugural message. He says, I want to give the power back. I want to give the freedom back. I want to give the money back. I want to give everything back to the people. I want them to be in control of this government. I want them to be free. And now we see in this election, right? We see that communism, and they're like, oh, universal health care, universal payment, universal work. We're going to take care of everybody. Anybody who wants to come to this country, we're going to take care of you. We're going to do all these things for you. Which really, if you were to say on the scenario of this type and shadow, would that put us more as slaves to Egypt, the authority, or would that take us to the promised land or to the wilderness? It's funny. I had a friend the other day, and he says, I'm a Christian, bless God, I'm in the promised land. And I said, really? I says, if you're in the promised land, you don't have any debts then, right? I said, you can do whatever you want. You can work or not work. I said, you can travel wherever you want. I said, you have zero debts. And he says, no, I have debts. And I said, well, how do you regurgitate that you're in the promised land? Because you've heard from a pulpit before, oh, blessed are you. But blessed were the Israelites who were slaves. Were they not children of God? They were children of God, but they were in slavery. And I said, why do you think you're so much better than what the Israelites were? Because you asked a prayer, you said a prayer, so now you're born again. And not to get into that rhetoric either, but, is it that you're born again, or that you have the revelation of what Christ did? Do we think through a prayer that then the magic fairy dust comes over us and basically, boom, we become born again? Or is it that we say that, and that's one way that a person gets a revelation of what God's done in all people? Just a side note thought, rabbit trailed that. So here's my thought is I'm telling this guy, and he's saying, I'm in the promised land. And I says, I think you're a slave. And he's laughing at me. He's like, well, I'm born again. I can't be a slave. And I was like, well, tell that to the Israelites who were slaves. So here's the scenario. Moses is trying to get God's children out of Egypt. I think right now, this coronavirus, what's going to happen next, is going to get us out of Egypt. I think we are children of God. All of us are. And I believe that it's going to shake the government, and it's going to change church, right? So right now you have the church leadership, and the church leadership tells you what to do with your money, when to do it, how to pray, when you should come to church, what you should do with your life, how you should live your life. The church is governing you and your family. And if your husband doesn't go to church, but your wife, the wife does, then she comes home and tries to tell the husband how he should live. I made a thing of the other day, and I had Ashley here. We were talking, and I said, Ashley, if I told you I would give you the perfect steps and methods of life based off you giving me 10%, would you do that? She said, no. And I said, yeah, but Ashley, you're just a woman. And I insulted her and I put her down. And it was not because I think women are less. I think they are more. But I think that the church has kept women in such bondage that they're like, oh, a man, if he tells me what to do, then I should live unto that what he says. And I think the Holy Spirit is in you, guiding you, teaching you, leading you, and not a man. Jesus did not say, let a man lead and guide you. I think it's utter garbage where pastors are saying that I'm your spiritual father. Well, hold on. Is that an insult to God, my Father? Is it an insult to what Jesus Christ has really done for me? You got a pastor who's saying I'm your spiritual father. What have you done for me? When have you called me? Who are you praying for me? Did you keep that disease off of me? Did you keep my kid healed? Did you raise my kid from the dead? You do nothing but take my money and tell me what I should do and what I'm doing right or wrong. And that makes you a spiritual father? No, God is our spiritual father. God's given us the Holy Spirit to do all these things. The pastors have taken it way too far. You know, for me, it's kind of like the 5 spiritual gifts, right? So you've got pastors, prophets, evangelists, teachers, prophets. And so you got these 5 spiritual gifts where they're so they match so well with also the 5 behavioral gifts, right? So you have these 2 that just mirror so closely together. And so for me, I take it as pastors have that behavior group of caring, which is a supporter in a behavior group. You have the evangelists who are the promoters. They talk, they're excited. They want to tell you about things. You have the teachers who are the analytical people. And these 2 match up. And I don't think we realize it. We think, you're a teacher and so you're called by God. Well, in the behavior group, it's your calling that God's put in you and you react based on your behavior. I think it is also the same way. It's not a position that God's given you as a pastor to be over to people, to tell them what they should do or how they should do it. Even apostle, right? So business people, they're apostles. They can lead and organize and they can do logistics and they can help promote people in what they're called to do. It's not that an apostle should be over everybody and tell them what to do. But they have that gifting to see. Well, same with a businessman. Is a businessman not an apostle? And so again, we're talking about what happens next. I believe this breakout that's going to happen from freedom, from it used to be Egypt, is now us, right? So for the Israelites, it was, let's get out of Egypt. For us, it's, let's get out of the church. Let's get out of the government. Let's get out of the bondage. Let's get debt free. Let's have some of these financial things happen. Is going to take place. As Moses tried, with his stuttering and everything like that, and he was a king of kings. I mean, basically he was born into that. He wasn't born into that, but he was transferred into that. Same with Trump. So Trump he becomes a billionaire. He's part of the high society. And then he comes out of that and he says, I care more about the people than my high society standing. Types and shadows we're talking about here. And then he does everything he can to try to give us tax, give us relief on regulations, give us more control by trade with China, give us security by the border, give us security by, working with Iran and trying to, keep things isolated over there and pulling out troops. And he's doing so many different things for the people, just like Moses. And as hard as he's working, then what happened, right? So then the other leaders of Pharaoh were coming against Moses, and they're saying, they're doing things, and they're saying things, and they're making accusations, and they're, accusing them of these things. And Moses is coming against it, and almost seemingly by himself, right? No help, nobody there to support him. He doesn't have his team. He doesn't have an army. He's one man under fire. And I feel like that's kind of the same thing with Trump. He's one man under fire, trying to make the best for the people, trying to declare what he wants. He talks about so many things, and this is what what's going to happen next. Trump said this. He said in his inaugural message, he said, energy and new energies coming out because he said, we're walking on it right now. Well, that's interesting because that's the exact same rhetoric that Kim Clement talked about. Kim Clement talked about this big E, this new energy. He also talked about Bill Gates being a financier for the kingdom of God. Well, guess what? Bill Gates just started a thing called Breakthrough Energy Venture or something like that. And in that venture, he got 20 billionaires to put together $1 billion each. So now they got $20 billion, and that company is to find a new source of energy, something that's sustainable, that they can create, that they can bring to market, and then they sell it. So what's going to happen? They're going to be an IPO with Bill Gates' company that's going to sell this product to the world, and it's going to be big. It's going to be really big. When Kim Clement says that it's going to be the financier to the church, who's the church? You're the church. You are the church. It's not that stupid building you've been going to. I'm mad. I hate the fact that every building says church of this, church of that, church of this, church of that. I am the church. You are the church. The church building has stole your name and identity. They've stole your purpose. They say, go to the building, trust that guy, listen to the guy, do that. But when did Paul, remember when Paul's like, oh, the Spirit told me not to go to Asia. The Spirit told me to do this. Peter, right, he sees a dream and he says, well, Lord, I won't do that. And then the Lord speaks to him and gives him revelation. And then he says, go here, talk to this person. And then it wasn't that person, it was another person. And that's what I'm saying. His instruction didn't come from the church or the church building. It came from the Spirit of God on the inside of them, that same Spirit that lives and dwells with you. You have that. Let go of that. I think that is bondage. I think that leadership of church is bondage. I think better of you. I think better of the business that you have. I think better as a parent you are. I think you understand things. I think of all this punishment that we put our kids through because we're trying to have this standard for God so that they'll make it to heaven. I believe you know better in your heart how to raise your kids than what the church rules and regulations are. I think man, what if I said this? What if I did that? What if I hugged my kid? What if I blessed my kid? What if I started saying things over my kid that I believe you shall be a business person? We have this wish that we wish they were, ministers of the gospel. What if their life represented ministers of the gospel just because they were such good givers? When is the last time you've been able to give as much as you wanted after you tied to the church? Probably rarely. And that's my point is the church has stolen our money. They've stolen our purpose. They've stolen our connection with the Holy Spirit. They've basically impregnated themselves and they wedged themselves in between us and God. And I think they're being shaken right now. I mean, for us not to be able to go to church, we have to stay at home. We get to look at other YouTube things. We get to listen to other podcast things. We get to get new insight of what's happening. Again, what happens next? It's up to you. Are you gonna be free, or are you gonna desire like the Israelites? Remember, the Israelites are eating this awesome quality food, and they're like, "Oh, I wish we could go back." Is your heart's desire to hurry up and get back into church and start giving up all of your rights of what you think, what you feel, what you have relationships, what your calling is to do? I've talked to too many old people telling me, man, I feel worthless. I feel useless. I'm not doing anything in the church. Only thing they ask me to do is go watch the kids in the nursery. So are you called to be a babysitter? Or do you have more in you? I believe you have more in you. Type in shadow. Again, so let's talk about this. What happens next? What happens after this death angel goes over the whole city and wipes out the firstborn sons? Everybody went into their house, waited for this moment, and then it happened. And then what happened? They came outside again. Life restarted again. this plague, this coronavirus is not a mandate for life. It's not going to be years. It's not going to even be months. Months, depending on how you scenario, it's not going to be 6 months or 8 months. It's going to be quick. It's going to be over. The death angel didn't come back. It wasn't, oh, here's a boomerang effect. You know, he's going to do it this month, then he's going to do it next month, then he's going to do it next month, and then he's going to do it next month. No, it was a one-time deal, and it was over. And when was it over? It was over at Passover. And I think the same thing. I think we're going to come into a new understanding of this. I don't necessarily think we're doing this out of fear, but kind of this holy humble. You know, is the Lord the one who's keeping us in our houses to see what it's like with our family, to have grace and understanding and compassion for our kids and for our teachers and for the people at work? And is it giving us new eyes to look differently at situations and problems? Is it giving us, what is this thing doing to us? And so when you're in this time, I'd like you to ask, Lord, what is next? What happens next for me? Now, on this story, we know. So what happens? Great healing comes to the people. It says that there was no feeble person. Now, you got to remember, they're slaves. They're whipped. They're doing hard work. I know so many people, they got knee problems. They got, liver problems, lung problems. They got this problem, that problem, every problem in the church. And I don't understand that. I don't understand why we have so many health problems in the church. And there's this great thing that happens. They're all healed. I believe that technology in this situation is going to come forth that will heal all. I think Parkinson's, I think autism, I think cancer, I think many things are going to be solved and healed through this situation. Trump has done this thing where he says, basically, I'm going to rush the power of medicine and healing and technology to be able to be produced faster so that we don't have to wait. I know that the big drug companies, right, they almost put this demand on Congress and all these bill writers and Senate to basically say, don't let this come to pass. Why is it that there's so much regulation on bringing a new medicine to market, right? Because the people who have medicine that's already on the market, they're paying large percentages of the millions and billions of dollars that they're making to these people to keep them into power so that they can stay in power, which then means that you are powerless. And again, we're talking about freedom here. So I think there's going to be a freedom that shakes the leaders in these drug companies, the leaders in our government, the leaders in our churches. It's going to shake and give us a new freedom. And with the health thing, right? So I think they're going to have, Kim Clementi even talked about a year where viruses are no more. They're talking about gene editing, right? Where you can take your RNA or your DNA and you can clip it and you can snip it and you can change it and you can maneuver it from this cell that is sick, that will take cancer, to now having a whole and complete cell. I used to think that if you were to do some sin or something like that, that basically you would have sickness, right? God was punishing you. He was teaching you. You didn't tithe. You didn't do this. You have unforgiveness in your heart. You have all these things. And so God's teaching you, or at least let the enemy come in to siphon you because you haven't been doing what you're called to do. You haven't been living as a good Christian. You. It's all your responsibility. And so now he's going to teach you through this experience of sickness that you should do better. And I just sitting there and I'm like, this doesn't seem like the love of God that we've been taught. But now I get the revelation, oh my gosh, it's not me who is doing something wrong that creates cancer in my body. It's my DNA that tells me my body is susceptible to cancer. And so what's going to happen is you're going to see this huge debate now that people, because cloning, right? Cloning came out and it says, oh, now you're trying to act like God. You're trying to make life. Well, didn't God call us little Elohims? Didn't God say, I've made you in my likeness and image. I've given you understanding. I've given you the mind of Christ. I've given you these things. Well, don't we know that he did that in the sciences? Should we be so awed that scientists have understood now the creation of man like God who created us from dirt and breath? And so now man is understanding, oh, so wouldn't it be natural and normal for us to produce like God? And that's a funny thing, because basically if I look around at everything on earth, from flowers to trees to animals, it's all reproduce. Even us reproduce oxygen, and the plants and animals reproduce oxygen for us, and they give new life on a daily basis. I just think there's just so much about that. But here's the thing: is how does that process work? And for us to understand that at a better understanding of medical history, I think we're going to live longer. We're going to be healthier. We're going to break new records. Again, what is happening next? What is happening next is I think more records are going to be broken. A 4-minute mile was, oh my gosh, you're going to die if you break the 4-minute mile. Then they break the 4-minute mile, and then thousands of people broke the 4-minute mile the next time. And now the 4-minute mile, you got high schoolers breaking the 4-minute mile. And I think that's going to happen right now with where we're at on the doorstep, on the threshold of technology. So again, you got all these healthy people who were abused. Their body was abused. They were slaves. They were working. And so here you have all these slaves being abused, and now they're healthy. They're strong. And so they go to who? They go to the people of Egypt, and they say things like, hey, that's a nice necklace. Can I have it? And the person gives it to him. Hey, that's nice cattle. Can I have it? And the person gives it to him. Hey, that's nice, and they kept on asking for things over and over. Oh, I like that. I like those dishes. I like that bed. I like this. I like that. And they started loading up. Redemption happened for them. Before they left Egypt, they got health and they got wealth. What's happening next? Right now, I'm telling you, health and wealth are being transferred over to you. We talk about this transfer of wealth. There's never been a time that I've seen that $2 trillion went to the people. The people. Now, I lived through, and I had a business in the recession of 2008. And it got harder to borrow money, right? So Dodd-Frank came along, that law. And basically they said, because we made everything so easy on subprime, now we're going to make things even tougher. So in your most biggest need of money, they make things tougher to borrow. Now we get this thing. Everybody's getting money. What is that? That's the transfer of wealth happening. I honestly believe everybody's like, oh my gosh, we're spending trillions of dollars on this. Coincide, if you take Bill Gates, again, what's going to happen next? If you take Bill Gates, who's producing and working on making a $1 trillion company in energy so that we can get free from Iran, Saudi Arabia, Russia, that we can get free and stand on our own, because this is the shaking that's happening. If we can get free and stand on our own by this company that Bill Gates is doing, we have this trillion. It's like what? 22 trillion. It's going to go up to 25 trillion. It's probably going to go up to 30 trillion. But something's going to happen. It's going to change. There's going to be some laws applied or some change that happens and takes place. And it's going to seem like it's not really possible, or it's not really going to help. It's just going to be a small, maybe almost insignificant thought. But the debt, the trillions of dollars of debt is going to be paid off in 6 years. What's going to happen next? Well, think about that. If the debt is paid off in 6 years, what would that look like for you? What would that look like for your company? What would that look like for your 401k, your stock market? What would that look like if there was a huge utterance of money coming into the market? What would that look like for real estate? What would that look like if you started investing weekly or monthly now from this point on? Ford, it's down almost to $4. Ford is at $4. I mean, it's been high as to $20, $25, $30. And there was a prophecy that Kim Clement said that Ford was going to go back to $30. Well, you could buy Ford now at $4. What happens next if you buy Ford at $4 and it goes back to $30? What happens next to the USA if we go from $25 trillion in debt to no debt? What does that look like for the government when things are different, being shaken again? I think we're in a verge of a breakout, and I want you to think about that. What would your life look like? What would your kids look like? What would education look like? What would your business look like? When will you believe enough in yourself that you'll start that business? What would it look like to have flying cars? What would it look like to have a car with 5 different energies? What would it look like if you could buy all of the energy that you wanted for less than $1? What would it look like? If you think about some of the interesting things that happened to the Israelites as they left, they had some kind of clothing technology that never wore out. Their clothes never wore out. I believe we're on that place. I believe that there's new things coming with graphene and different products that are coming to market with nanotechnology and stuff like that, where what if it looked like where you could take any shirt, put it on, push a button, and it comes fitted? What if it looked like if your clothes would never wear out, maybe even change colors? What would it look like, if you didn't have to, constantly be buying stuff because, it rips or tears or breaks and that's what I'm saying. What would it look like? The possibilities. Another thing that we got to think about is the fire by night to keep them warm, the cloud by day to keep them cool. And if we look at right now, we were talking about cloud technology, right? Well, even think about what's going on with the satellite system, right? So Elon Musk is making this constellation of satellites that are going to go across the whole entire world. Well, think about that. If everywhere on Earth can be connected, what would the power be of now? Could you have flying cars? Because basically that car could go anywhere in the world and still be connected to that satellite system that's hovering over, almost like a cloud or a pillar of fire. Like the technology that's coming forth is going to increase our quickest abilities to do everything. Think about this, the Neuralink, right? So Neuralink, another Elon Musk company who has a gadget that hooks up to your brain that can help you move limbs by thought. It can also potentially, where they're trying to work at is create technology that you can type things on the computer screen. That you can basically, now we say Google, right? So we're like, oh, Google, do this, open this, Siri, hey, Alexa. And so we do all this voice activating thing and we think, oh my gosh, this is huge technology. What if you don't even have to say it, you think it and it happens? Turn off the light and the light happens. Start the car happens. Drive here. All of these different things. So, I'm talking about flying cars, which is even the next step. Right now we're going to have automated cars, basically where one car could serve the whole family. You can sleep while it drives. You can go on a trip instead of airplanes because you have, your own personal plane, And that's what I'm trying to say. What's next in the world? Right now we're in the house and we feel isolated and we feel confused and we see shortages of food. We see that we're at risk of health. And what I'm trying to tell you is that's not how the story goes. It's how it seems in the beginning, but it changes greatly by the end. And so here they are, they're in the wilderness, right? And they got this food, high quality, taste good food. And it's just coming to them. It's just plentiful food coming to them. And that's what I'm saying. What if we get better quality foods? What if we get better by gene editing, right? So you can right now cut and snip some of this food and make it to where it's drought resistant. Make it to where it produces more. You can produce more now in an acre of crops than you were able to do 50 years ago because of gene editing. It's already working. It's already around us. But how much better can it get? How much better could our lives get? How much better could your life get? How much better could your life get if you were 100% debt-free? How much better could your life get if you really understood the grace of God for you as a man, for you as a woman, as a mother, as a business person? How much better could it get if you realize, oh my gosh, it's not God punishing people, making them sick. It's their DNA. And now there's a possibility of getting your DNA changed so that you're never hindered health-wise again. Come on. Technology is bringing new innovation. What is happening next? And I think like the thing with the church, right? So you're giving 10%. You can't even give to, people in need that you see because you're like, well, I already gave. The church has put a demand on you to keep us funded. But what if you took that 10%? Now I'll stop because you what? Don't mess with my 10%. Doesn't it say in the New Testament, give as your heart desires? So hold on. God thinks that you're smart enough, thinks that your heart is pure enough, understands that you are the God person he created to be, says, I trust you. Do what you want. I mean, think about the woman who comes and breaks that perfume on Jesus' feet. He trusted her. I believe God trusts you with your money. I believe God trusts that you can put it where you want because you are his child. You have a good heart. And that's what I'm talking about, grace here. I'm talking about grace with money. I'm talking about grace with understanding. I'm talking about grace with what you can do, what you can't do. I'm talking about freedom to be able to do something different. To me, being in the wilderness was not a bad thing. I would take the wilderness any day over slavery, and I think that's where we're going. I've already come out, but as much as I've come out of the church and don't go to church anymore, I still feel like I'm under an avalanche of beliefs, and I get a little air and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so much better. And then more slides on me of drama, of beliefs, of crap that I've learned in the church that were just utter lies. Selfish lies. We're in the South here, so the South has this honor thing, honor your mother and father. I understand it's in the Bible, but then it turns into, well, honor your pastor. I mean, I've actually seen things where they send out now, it's 10 things that you should do for your pastor. You should pray. You should understand. You should forgive. You should. And I'm sitting there saying, well, where's it reversed to the people? Why is it always exalt the leadership and demean the people? Take the money from the people, basically harm the people. And I think this is self-centered church is happening, right? You got one person. You can't tell me it's not self-centered. You got one person at the top. Oh, and then you've got some elders, but the elders really don't have control either. Or the elders have all the control and the pastors don't have the control. I've seen way too much of it. I know. And you can say, oh, not my church. And I love it. Stay at your church. Be comfortable where God leads you and you feel you have to stay. Notice I said that, have to stay. I love that thing where it says, if you love the bird, you let it go. If it comes back, it loved you too. My question is, could you let yourself go? Could you trust yourself just as much as God trusts you? Just as much as you trust Peter? Just as much as you trust Paul? I mean, even if we think about like the Nehemiah, right? So Nehemiah is like, I'm not going there. What would that look like for you to have such freedom where you can say and feel comfortable that you're being led by the Spirit of God? Financially, right? So it says, give and your heart desire. Give by your heart's desire. It doesn't say give to the church only because they are the officials of giving. They are the money. They are the best understanders of God, of what should happen with the money. No, it does not say that. God trusts you with your money. What if you started taking your 10% and every week you start investing in things like Ford? Start looking for saving up your money for the Bill Gates IPO. What if you start buying real estate in anticipation that more real estate is going to come because the market's going to be so thriving? What if you started buying into technology companies? What if you started paying off your debt so that you would have more money so that you'd be able to invest in the future? What if happens next? Based on what do you see? What do you see in this time? To me, you get stimulus money. You can get payroll money. You can get loans very cheap. There's so much happening with the government right now to help you. I think this is the greatest transfer of wealth. And not only that, I know of some other situations. We talked about the dinar, right? We talked about buying into the dinar and basically having that as an investment. Transfer of wealth. There's so many things that are happening right now. I want you to be able to raise up, look at, and see and say, what do I need to do differently so that I can be a part of that? What do I need to do with my finances? Talk to your wife. You're at home now. Go ahead, talk to your wife. See what she wants. I will say this, wives, as I talked about before, there's more women in the church than men, and I think it's because men understand. Men understand that the church is wrong, right? So we've always demeaned the men as saying, oh, you don't go to church. You're not a Christian. You're a stupid sinner. I believe your husband's right. I believe by him choosing not to go to church, he's standing up for what God's really called us as individuals, to become one. The power of you and your husband are way stronger than whatever that pastor says. Even if it's totally wrong against what the church says, the unity of you and your husband are way stronger than any pastor, apostle, prophet. I don't care. The unity of man and woman is way stronger. Don't ever be deceived by what a pastor says. The Spirit of God is way stronger for families than he is for the church. It's a manipulative message that they're preaching. Take it with a grain of salt. Chew up the hay and the stubble and spit out the garbage that the church keeps on putting on you. I love the fact that we don't take any tithes or offerings or anything here, because I can be trusted to say, what do you want, Lord? What do you want? Because I don't have to manipulate you into giving by the words I say. Because I believe, like God believes, you should be trusted by the desires of your heart. Not wicked person, but righteous man and woman of God, that you can go out into this earth and you can do great things. What is happening next? Is this going to happen next? Are you going to do great things or going to yield your life back to the church? Are you going to do great things with the Spirit of God who lives in you, invest and create a new life for your family through opportunities? There's opportunities everywhere. I think it was so interesting that, the story of the talents, they gave money up to 3 different people, because basically he understood opportunities everywhere. And that's what I want you to see today. Don't put your head down, bury the money, and say, there's no opportunity for me anywhere. I got to stay here at the church. There's opportunity everywhere, financially, spiritually, for your family, with health and wealth. There's opportunity everywhere. You think about some of these things. Start looking at the type and shadow, the possibilities. Start researching, start analyzing, start reading technology things. Start seeing the future. Be part of that future before it comes. And you're going to have an exciting, wonderful time. So, stay safe, stay at home. Pray. When I say pray, don't pray, oh Lord, please keep the coronavirus from me. He's doing that. Say, Lord, teach me what the future looks like for me. Teach me the opportunities. Teach me the possibilities. Teach me what I need to know so that I can increase in my business, so that I can increase in the things around me, so that I can increase in the nurturing of my kids, that I can increase in grace for my kids, so that I can increase in hope. This should be the greatest time of growth for you. Most things happen, right? With sickness, what happens? Somebody gets sick and then they come out and they say, oh, I eat differently now. I act differently. I don't drink as much now. I don't do this. I don't do that. Because basically a life-changing bad experience happened. They were sick. They were rushed to the hospital. They had this happen. And so with great pressure, change comes. So are you going to yield back after having this moment in time of great pressure? Or are you going to change and be different, think different, act different, have different? What would it look like if you were debt-free? What it would look like if you had thousands or millions of dollars in investments? What would it look like if you didn't have to go to work? What would it look like if you could travel more? What would it look like if you had your own ministry? I encourage you in all these things. Until next time.